My name is Hayden Guilderson. I'm from Chilliwack, BC. I'm an intergenerational residential school survivor. I'm a part of Tzeachten First Nation band from the First Nation, as well as I play for the Trinity Western men's hockey team. I think just this past summer with the first finding of the residential school burial in Kamloops with 215 children, I think what it represented was a bittersweet moment. Finding the remains of 215 children and now it's up to about 6,000 is the bitter part of it. But on the other hand, a lot of people are waking up to see the atrocities and the genocide that was committed on First Nations people. People thought, oh, that's ages ago, it's your ancestors, when really both my great-grandma and my great-grandpa were residential school survivors. It's really not that far along. And when the Kamloops situation arose, our band did a really good job of doing a ceremony for residential school survivors. But it still hits home. My grandma couldn't even go because she was still so upset. So it's definitely something that still trickles down and still affects people to this day. And I think truth and reconciliation is obviously an ongoing process. But I definitely think we've made a step in the right direction, and it's learning. I've learned everything I know about my First Nations heritage through my grandma, which has been passed down obviously from her parents. Yeah, you hear the stories and you hear the atrocities that were committed on young children, and it really makes you sad, but it also, she has a lot of wisdom, and through her knowledge and the way that she approaches life with grace, not needing a sense of revenge, but really just looking for grace and the truth to come out in reconciliation. That's all that she and I think as a community, the First Nations people is working towards. I think the Truth and Reconciliation Day is another step forwards in the reconciliation process. It's just another opportunity for people to learn about the history of Canada, and the not so distant history is a big part of that. September 30th, I think that all Canadians should just take the time to look back to what happened to the First Nation culture and heritage and the attempted assimilation, and just try to understand or maybe learn a thing or two just about First Nations heritage, because at the end of the day it all comes down to knowledge. If you have a better understanding for your neighbor, you're going to have a better opportunity to be able to empathize with them and care for them and love them. The whole process through my hockey journey has been a little bit different, just because before I even have my tattoos or anything, I may not present as fully Indigenous just by the color of my skin. But all throughout my hockey journey, playing with and against other teams, there's always been comments. Obviously, growing up in BC, the Indigenous community is a pretty decent representation of the population. And you hear the stereotypes and the comments and the typical comments. But it's been hard for me because when I'm on a team, like, what do I get put in an awkward situation? Like, do I laugh at these comments, or do I kind of ostracize myself and stand up and say, hey, like, that's not right? With the tattoos, I just really wanted to be able to represent my heritage and my upbringing, because I felt like I should be proud of who I am. I should be proud of being First Nations. Just incorporating it into who I am, not being afraid to express that as well, because I think one thing is I may not look entirely First Nations from a first glance, but I think some people, if they were in my position, may be embarrassed just because of the stereotypes and the racism that has been in years past. But I didn't want to be that way. I wanted to be able to express who I was and express my culture through art and through the way that I take on life. I want to be a role model for everyone else, to say I'm an accomplished athlete, I'm a year away from getting my bachelor's degree. Like, pursue excellence in everything that you do, and I think that's the best way for the First Nations people of Canada to attempt to rid the stereotypes and to rid racism, is to strive to be their best. I think it's just developing an understanding of each other and each other's differences and celebrating that.